My name is Rachel. Around this company, people call me the financial cop, but the title on my business card is Internal Audit Specialist. My job is to find mistakes, spot financial loopholes, and seal them before the company loses money. I'm cold with numbers and ruthless with violations. I never thought that one day I'd become the very kind of excess number someone decided needed to be eliminated. This week, the air on the 15th floor felt thick enough to chew. Rumors of a major layoff had been floating around since last month. People walked softly, eyes glued to their screens, terrified that if they looked up, they'd meet the gaze of someone from HR. But I wasn't scared. For the past 5 years, my performance reviews had always been outstanding. I was an asset to this company, not a burden. At least, that's what I believed, until my desk phone rang at 10 miles a.m. Rachel, report to Human Resources immediately. The voice on the other end was so familiar it made my stomach tighten. It was David, my husband, and also the director of Human Resources at this company. I walked into his office relaxed. David sat behind the big wooden desk, not looking up. He was organizing a stack of formal cream-colored envelopes that everyone knows exactly what they are. Severance packages. Sit, David said, ice in his voice. He didn't call me babe. He didn't ask, "How's your morning?" I sat down, trying to find even the smallest smile on my husband's face. There was nothing. Just cold gray eyes and a level of professionalism that felt downright cruel. Rachel, he began, fingers interlaced. As you know, the corporation is restructuring. After careful review, I regret to inform you that your internal audit specialist position has been eliminated. I blinked, my smile dying. David, are you rehearsing a speech? It's me, your wife. David didn't flinch. He slid a thick envelope across the desk toward me. I'm not joking. This is official notice. Your employment is terminated effective immediately as of this moment. I shot up, palms flat on his desk. What the hell are you talking about? You're firing your wife? I'm the best employee on the team. What are you basing this on? Here, I'm the HR director. You're the employee. This is a business decision, David said, his tone even, mechanical. The company needs fresher, younger thinking that fits the digital era. Your approach is too rigid. Rigid? David, that's integrity. The package is generous. He cut me off, pushing a folder into my hands. 3 months' salary. You should sign, pack your things, and leave the building before noon so you don't disrupt anyone. I stared at the man in front of me. Ruthless. Decisive. He looked at me like an expired product. I held the envelope, my hands shaking with rage. I wanted to rip it in half and throw it in his face, but my professional instincts kept me in check. Fine, Mr. Director, I said, stressing every word, and turned on my heel. That night, the atmosphere in our house was unsettling in a way I can't quite describe. I sat at the dinner table, the termination letter placed right beside my salad plate. David walked in, loosened his tie, whistling cheerfully like nothing had happened. He shed the cold mask from the morning and put on the face of the perfect husband. He came up behind me, rested a hand on my shoulder, and rubbed gently. Honey, don't be upset. I actually did this for you. I looked up, forcing down my anger. For me? Yeah, David said, pulling out a chair, practically glowing. Audit work is too stressful. You're always tense, always frowning. It hurts me to see you like that. With my salary now, I can easily support the whole household. You can stay home, cook, take care of the place, get your nails done, be a woman of the home. That's what I like. He took a sip of wine, eyes shining with smug pride. The company needs young people and new energy. And you belong in this house. David's words hit me like a bucket of ice water. He didn't just fire me. He wanted to turn me into a dependent housewife, someone who'd have to hold out her hand and ask him for money every month. So who's replacing me? I asked, my voice oddly calm. Oh, we'll handle staffing internally, David dodged, lowering his head to eat. That night, after David was asleep, I quietly opened my phone. Even though my company email had been cut off, I was still in the private group chat with the women in accounting. A congratulatory message had just been posted. Congratulations to Jessica, administrative intern, on officially being signed to a long-term contract and appointed to the auditor role, taking over Rachel's work starting tomorrow. Jessica. The 22-year-old intern, young, pretty, but couldn't even handle a basic spreadsheet. She was replacing me? Images flashed through my mind. David and Jessica whispering together in the cafeteria, the furtive looks, the late nights. David coming home after work more and more. Everything snapped into focus like a slow-motion film. So that young, new energy he talked about was his mistress. He kicked his wife out of her career and into the kitchen to clear the path for his affair partner. I set my phone down. No tears. In the dark, I stared at David. He thought he was a king, with power of life and death at the company. But he forgot what I do for a living. He picked the wrong person to provoke. According to company policy, I had 1 week to hand off my work. 1 week to train my replacement, Jessica, and pack 5 years of contributions into a few cardboard boxes. David assumed I'd spend that week crying in a bathroom stall or calling my mother to complain. He was wrong. He forgot what my profession is. I'm an auditor. I don't trust feelings. I trust evidence. And in my world, every action on a computer leaves a trail. Tuesday morning, I got to the office earlier than usual. Jessica was already sprawled at my old desk, spinning in the expensive chair I had to fight to get approved. She looked at me with a half smile that was equal parts pity and triumph. "Rachel," she said in a syrupy voice that sounded fake from the first syllable. "David told me you'll walk me through the budget approval process. You know, I'm young, so I learn fast." I smiled, the coldest smile I could manage. "Sure, Jessica. But first, I need to access the system to export the historical data. Go grab me a coffee, would you? This part takes focus." The second she disappeared, I plugged my USB drive into the computer. My account still had high-level internal audit access until Friday. David, in all his arrogance, hadn't told IT to cut my permissions immediately because he still needed me to finish an unfinished tax report. That was his fatal mistake. I didn't open the tax report. I opened the HR system console. My fingers moved across the keyboard like a pianist playing a final piece. I went straight to performance review history. On the termination paper David gave me, the reason listed was performance below company average. That was absurd. I pulled up my latest annual review. My vision narrowed. My overall rating glared back at me in red. 2.5. Poor. But I remembered perfectly. The version the finance department had signed 2 weeks ago was 5.5. Outstanding. How could the data change? I right-clicked and opened the back-end audit trail. This is the kind of thing people like David, people who don't really understand systems, always overlook. The platform logs every edit, who changed it, when, and from which workstation. And there it was. Edit time. 1:14 a.m., October 4th. Edited by David, admin account. Action. Changed score from 5 to 2. Added note. Employee lacks flexibility, not aligned with new culture. He did it in the middle of the night while I was asleep next to him. He got up, logged into the system, and erased an entire year of my work with a couple of clicks, just to legitimize firing me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was data fraud. But I didn't stop there. My instincts told me David and Jessica weren't just a messy romance. In corporate environments, abnormal promotions always come with an exchange. As an internal auditor, I had compliance access to the company's email archive. I typed in keywords, Jessica, promotion, date. A flood of emails popped up. My heart sped up, not from jealousy, but from the thrill of a hunter spotting the target. David didn't use a personal email. He was arrogant enough to flirt through his company account because he believed that as HR director, no one would dare audit him. One email from 2 weeks earlier, from David to Jessica. Baby, don't worry about Rachel, I'm handling the paperwork. This layoff round is the perfect chance to make you official, as long as you're good for me tonight. Another email, Jessica's reply, from Jessica to David. I don't want to be an intern forever. You promised that auditor position pays big. If not, I'll tell your wife about our beach trip. I held my breath. This wasn't just an affair. This was quid pro quo sexual harassment and abuse of authority. He used company power and position to trade for sex, and Jessica used sex to blackmail a promotion. Both of them were violating the corporation's code of conduct in the most serious way. I downloaded everything: the performance score edit trail, David's late-night login records, and the entire chain of filthy emails. I saved 3 copies, one on my USB, one to my personal cloud storage, and one to the confidential inbox of the attorney I'd just retained. Rachel? Jessica's voice came from behind me. She was back, holding 2 coffees. She glanced at my screen with curiosity. I closed the data windows fast, leaving only a harmless tax report page open. I turned in my chair, accepted the coffee, and smiled, my first real smile of the day. Thank you, Jessica, I said, my voice calm in a way that felt almost strange. Enjoy your new role. It's going to be memorable. Jessica frowned, confused by my unusually cheerful tone. She had no idea that in my purse right now wasn't just lipstick and powder. It was a bomb powerful enough to blow up her boyfriend's entire career. I left the office early that day. David texted, "Come home early and cook. I want steak tonight." I texted back, "Sure, honey." I would cook him a feast, because it might be the last good dinner he ever eats before his world collapses. Today was Friday, my last day. David called me into his office for the final HR process they call an exit interview, but in reality, it was a pressure tactic. On his desk sat a thick stack of documents, neatly clipped. "Sign," David said, sliding the packet toward me along with an expensive fountain pen. "This is the separation agreement and confidentiality commitment. Once you sign, your 3 months severance will hit your account immediately." I picked up the packet and flipped through it slowly. David started getting impatient. He kept checking his watch, fingers tapping the desk in rhythm. "Rachel, it's just admin paperwork," he pushed. "Basically, you agree you're resigning voluntarily, you accept the money, and you promise not to disclose any internal company information, and you waive any right to complain or sue later." I stopped on page 5, the liability waiver. If I signed this, I'd permanently lose the right to sue for wrongful termination. I'd be taking a small check in exchange for silence, and David would be completely safe in his HR throne. I set the pen down. "I can't sign this right now." David's eye twitched. "Why?" You don't want the money? No, I said with a faint smile. I'm an auditor, David, occupational habit. I need to read every clause carefully before I sign anything. I'm taking this home over the weekend. I'll respond on Monday. David frowned, his voice dropping into a threat. Policy says you have to sign before you leave the building. If you walk out without signing, you might lose your severance. Are you threatening me? I looked him straight in the eye. Or are you afraid I'll find something improper in here? If you push me, I'll have my attorney review it. At the word attorney, David hesitated. He knew my personality. If I escalated, I'd go all the way. He exhaled, forced a crooked smile. Fine, honey. I just want what's best for you. Take it home, but bring it back Monday. Don't make this hard for me. I walked out with the packet. But I didn't go home. I went straight up to the 20th floor, the executive level. I no longer had badge access to this area, but the CEO's secretary still recognized me. Hi, Rachel. I'm so sorry to hear you're leaving, she said. Thank you, I replied. I have a highly sensitive, extremely urgent document that needs to be delivered directly to the CEO and the General Counsel. It concerns the company's safety. Can you schedule an emergency meeting for Monday morning? 15 minutes. Seeing how serious I looked, she nodded. Okay. Monday, 9 a.m. I'll tell them you're here to submit your final handover report. I thanked her and left. The trap was set, and David had no idea. When I got home, David kept acting like the perfect husband. He'd beaten me back, and on the table sat a big bouquet of roses and an envelope with airline tickets. For you, David said, wrapping his arms around me from behind and kissing my hair. I opened the envelope. A 5-day, 4-night all-inclusive getaway at a luxury resort in Nha Trang, departing Monday morning. I can tell you're stressed, he murmured. Go alone. Relax. Swim. Spa. I'll cover everything. You deserve a break. I looked at the tickets, then at his fake, polished face. He wanted to send me away next week. Why? Because next week was Jessica's first official week taking over my work. He wanted the house empty so he could bring his mistress home to celebrate, or he simply wanted me gone so nothing would interfere with their office honeymoon. You're so thoughtful, I said, turning around and smoothing his collar. Thank you, David. I really need this trip. David's eyes lit up with satisfaction. He thought his plan had worked perfectly. Wife fired, wife paid off, wife quiet, wife gone, and he was free. Then sign the agreement already and start packing, he urged. Okay. Sunday night I'll sign and leave it on the desk for you. I lied without blinking. That night I lay next to David listening to his steady snoring. I looked at the Nha Trang tickets on the nightstand. I wasn't going to Nha Trang. Monday morning, instead of going to the airport, I was going back to the company. And I wasn't going alone. I was taking every piece of evidence of his fraud, affair, and abuse of power straight into the meeting I'd just arranged. He wanted me to rest? Fine. After Monday, I'd have plenty of time to rest, on a pile of compensation, while he'd be the one scrambling to find a job. 8:45 a.m., Monday. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Has your flight taken off yet, honey? Text me when you land. Love you. I turned my phone off, smiled, and adjusted the collar of the deep burgundy power suit I chose specifically for today. I wasn't at Noi Bai Airport. I was standing outside the executive boardroom on the 20th floor. At exactly 9 a.m., the door opened. The secretary nodded me in. Inside, the CEO and the general counsel were waiting, faces curious but cautious. They didn't understand why a recently terminated employee was demanding an emergency meeting about the company's survival. I walked in without lowering my head. I walked like I owned the room. "Good morning," I said, placing my leather briefcase on the table and pulling out 3 spiral-bound packets. "Thank you for your time. I won't waste it. I'm not here to beg for my job back. I'm here to help the company avoid a lawsuit that could vaporize millions and destroy the corporation's reputation in the stock market." The CEO raised an eyebrow. "Are you threatening us, Rachel?" "No," I said. "I'm doing what an auditor does, flagging risk." I slid the first packet to the general counsel. "This is a compliance violation report I compiled over the weekend." Then I laid it out, clear and sharp like a scalpel. First, HR data fraud. I pointed to page 3. This is the system audit log. At 1:14 a.m. last Tuesday, the HR director, David, used an admin account to unlawfully access the system and downgrade my performance score from outstanding to poor. He did that to manufacture justification for terminating me. The general counsel narrowed his eyes at the bolded log entries. He was an experienced lawyer. He understood immediately: wrongful termination based on falsified evidence. Second, conflict of interest and quid pro quo sexual harassment. I flipped to the next page where printed excerpts of the emails between David and Jessica stared up from the paper. David promised a promotion to intern Jessica in exchange for a sexual relationship. Immediately after terminating me, he appointed her to my role at a salary above policy, despite the fact that she has no accounting or audit qualifications. This is a serious violation of company policy and creates major legal exposure. I paused long enough for the weight of it to land, then delivered the final blow. Third, legal and reputational risk. If I file a complaint today, with this evidence, the company won't just owe me damages for wrongful termination. You'll also face a public scandal about protecting a sex-for-promotion culture. How do you think shareholders react when they find out your HR director used company power to elevate his mistress? The room went silent. The CEO's face tightened. He turned to the general counsel. The lawyer gave a small nod, sweat beginning to shine at his hairline, and murmured, "She's right. If this goes public, we lose. The risk is massive." The CEO slammed his palm on the table, fury aimed not at me, but at the person who created this mess. "Secretary!" he barked into the intercom. "Bring the HR director up here immediately. Tell him to drop everything." 5 minutes later, the boardroom door opened. David walked in, confident, polished in his expensive suit. He thought he'd been summoned for praise over a successful restructuring. "Sir, you called—" His words died in his throat when he saw me. I was sitting at the head of the table across from the CEO, arms folded, wearing a cold smile. David froze, his face draining of color. "Rachel? What? What are you doing here? I thought you were on the plane." "Flight got canceled, David," I said, calm but loud enough to fill the room. "So I stayed to deliver my final audit report. The report about you." The CEO stood up and slammed the packet of printed emails onto the table with a heavy thud. "David," he growled, "you have 60 seconds to explain why you used company systems to falsify records and turned my organization into your personal harem, before I have security escort you out." David stared at the documents, then at me. In his eyes, I saw it. Total collapse. He finally understood that the NDA packet, the NHA Trang tickets, my quiet obedience, all of it had been a setup to bring him to this exact moment. I leaned back and watched. The game was over, sweetheart. David fell apart in front of me. The upright, powerful HR director persona evaporated, leaving a cowardly man scrambling for the last thing he could grab. "Sir, please, listen," David stammered, sweat pouring down his face even though the room was freezing. This is a misunderstanding. Rachel. She's being irrationally jealous. She altered data to frame me. This is a marital issue, nothing to do with work. Shut up! The CEO's shout cracked through the room like thunder. You think I'm an idiot, David? Digital trails don't lie. You abused your authority to remove an outstanding employee to cover up an affair, and worse, you inserted an unqualified person into my financial audit function. You didn't just betray your wife, you endangered my company. The general counsel adjusted his glasses, voice flat as a verdict. Under Section 14 of your employment agreement, fraud and severe ethical misconduct constitute grounds for termination for cause, effective immediately. David's eyes went wide. But, severance? I've given this company 10 years. I laughed. Out loud. The sound made David snap his head toward me. David, I said softly, like I was explaining something to a child. Severance applies to restructuring layoffs. What you're getting is a for-cause termination. You're leaving with nothing, not a dollar. And the company can pursue damages for reputational harm. David's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He turned on me with a mix of pleading and hatred. Rachel, what have you done? You killed your husband's career? Are you crazy? I'm not crazy. I stood and smoothed the front of my suit. I'm just completing one last audit, and the conclusion is simple. You're a bad debt the company needs to write off. The CEO hit the button for security. 2 large guards entered. Escort the former HR director to his office. He has 15 minutes to remove personal belongings, then collect his badge and escort him out. Make sure he takes no company documents. And one more thing, the CEO added. Go down to the 15th floor and remove an employee named Jessica Miller as well. Terminate her for recruitment fraud. David was marched out between the guards. He tried to look back at me, but I was already turning away, shifting to the more important conversation with the executives. Rachel, the CEO said, his tone softer as he poured me a glass of water. On behalf of the company, I apologize. We didn't know David had gone that far. We want you back. I can come back, I said, taking a sip, but not in my old role. What do you mean? I want the head of internal controls position, head of audit, reporting directly to the board, no middle layers. And the salary needs to match the responsibility of cleaning up the mess your former HR director created. The CEO and general counsel exchanged a look. They knew they had no real alternative. If I sued, they'd lose more. Agreed, the CEO said. Your appointment letter will be on your desk tomorrow morning. Welcome back, head of audit. When I stepped out of the building that afternoon, the sun had come out. A darkly comedic scene was unfolding at the front entrance. David stood by the curb holding a small cardboard box with a few sad personal items. Next to him was Jessica, sobbing with her makeup smeared, dragging a suitcase she'd clearly planned to take on that vacation. Employees gathered behind the glass doors, pointing, whispering. David, the man who used to bark orders and look down on everyone, was now the company joke. He saw me and tried to rush over, but security blocked him. I walked past without stopping, without even glancing at them. I got into the taxi waiting at the curb and left them behind in the ashes of their own lives. When I got home, David's car keys and wallet were on the table. Shared property I'd already moved to freeze by locking down our joint accounts right after the meeting. I placed one final file on the table. Not an audit report. Divorce papers. Grounds. Adultery and deception. With the evidence I had, he would walk away with nothing. No share of this house. A house my parents largely paid for. I sank into the sofa and poured myself a glass of top-shelf wine. My phone chimed. A bank notification. A large deposit had just hit my account, an ex gratia goodwill payment from the company to ensure I didn't file a wrongful termination lawsuit. The front door opened. David stumbled in, wrecked, deflated. He saw the divorce papers on the table, then saw me calmly drinking wine. Rachel. His voice was hoarse, desperate. I lost everything. My job, my reputation, my money. Are you satisfied now? I swirled the wine and watched the red catch the light. David, I said evenly, you told me you wanted me at home, being a housewife, while you played king at the office, right? You wanted me to be your silent background. I set my glass down and met his eyes. Well, your wish came true. I'm the owner of this house. I'm the queen of this kingdom. And you? You're just a black note in an HR file, an unemployed man whose wife left him. You wanted to play the patriarch? Too bad. The show's over. I stood, walked toward the bedroom, and closed the door behind me, leaving David collapsed on the cold floor in the dark. Tomorrow morning, I have an important meeting in my new role. I need to sleep early.